Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
That kid is back on the escalator again.
Ain't gonna hurt.
Here's my boomstick!
Game over, man. It's game over.
Welcome to the Bargain Bin. He is your host, Ben Mason.
And he is your co-host, Sandra Luketic. And today we're talking 1985's Tuff Turf. We assume if you're listening to this episode, you've already seen the movie. All right, buddy, lay it on me.
Lay what on you, man?
This is your first time seeing Tuff Turf?
Absolutely. I never heard of it before.
What? Really? I
Yeah.
thought you liked James Spader. I thought you knew his movies.
I like James Spader. I don't remember half the stuff he's in. Did you forget who you're talking to?
You mean Wolf's James Spader? No, you haven't seen Wolf either. Okay, never mind.
He was the voice of Ultron.
He was the voice of Ultron. Yeah, honestly, I haven't really liked anything he's done outside of the 80s, so I don't know.
Well,
Age of Ultron was a terrible Avengers movie.
lucky for you, we're talking about a movie he did in the 80s, so why don't we dive into this one?
All right, man. Just go right into the plot.
As opposed to?
Not going into the plot.
Well, then, that wouldn't make for a very fun episode, would it now?
All right, fine. I got it. All right. So we start.
Welcome to our podcast where we don't talk about the movie we're supposed to talk about.
Just more Age of Ultron. Anyway, it's nighttime. Morgan Hiller's cycling through the city to the most 80s song ever recorded, which I love very much, by the way.
Not just song, the entire scene, the shooting of it, the font on the screen. This is 80s.
It's perfect. It is a perfect movie from 85. A gang of punks are hanging out at the newspaper stand, I guess. well, the gang leader, Nick's
hey, Ben,
girlfriend...
what are you up to tonight? Not much, man.
You gonna hang at the newspaper stand?
That's a good place to find marks.
Shit, yeah. We're off to a great start here.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Gang leader Nick, his girlfriend Frankie is flirting with strangers. Frankie's just a distraction for mugging. Draw the attention of a mark of sorts, and then the gang will rob them. Although one of the punks snaps off a car antenna for a weapon. Jesus. That went to 11 real quick.
It went to 11, but at the same time, were they not expecting to mug somebody? Why was he not prepared with a weapon? What if that car wasn't parked there?
I guess. It just seems like a weird thing to do. However, you can't even really do that now, because do cars even have antennas anymore?
Yeah, they're just very different. Right? Like
I
you'll
guess
see...
if you snapped off a car antenna now, it'd be like 4 inches.
Yeah, and some of them are like top middle of the roof. They're little fiberglass one. It's not the same.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not like a Zorro type weapon.
Although, I mean, it's not a bad plan to use the girl as a distraction.
Oh no, that's brilliant. It's just such an 80s setup for a movie.
Yep.
And it gets even worse. Because Morgan shows up on his bicycle and sprays everyone with what I'm assuming is a can of soda.
It looked like a can of Coke or Pepsi or something like that.
Yeah. One of the punks accidentally sprays Nick in the face with spray paint. The victim runs away. Well, Antenna Guy does some really sick moves and slashes the patch on the back of Morgan's jacket. The weird thing here is Frankie, she looks impressed the entire time. And all he's done is spray people with pop.
I mean, at what point in the movie does he seem like some sort of vigilante hero? It just later on, he's just kind of like a regular dude, but we find out that like he's in a new place, and
he's
his
just a yuppie.
He's just like, I'm gonna go cruise to fight crime.
Yeah. Yeah, what exactly is he doing?
I don't know. it gives you an impression of the character that is not what you get for like the next major part of the movie.
No, because he never, like, James Spader as Morgan Hiller does not just randomly ride his bike around at night, except for this opening scene.
Yep.
Very good. All right.
That didn't stand out to you at all? Like, what?
No, it didn't. I just thought about it now. I'm like, when else does he do this? He doesn't.
It's not uncommon for the gang to be causing crimes and mischief at night and by the newspaper stand. But for Morgan to just be riding around and be like, I'm gonna go save that innocent person.
Thank God I brought my Pepsi.
Yeah, like, and you're like led to believe like, oh man, he's very resourceful and clever and quite the fighter. But no, we don't see that again.
I also love how as soon as he gets whipped in the back with that car antenna, he's like, fuck it, I'm out.
Yeah.
Just he's gone.
Well, I think he was actually already on his way out. Like, I don't think he intended to like make a second go around, and he was already kind of past them, which is why they got his patch on his back because he was already past them. So he was getting out of there anyway.
Daytime. Paige Hiller is on the phone with her eldest son Brian, talking about how Morgan isn't the most adaptive. We cut to Morgan's bedroom and see him in bed, wrapped up in his blankets, staring at two cockroaches crawling along an Albert Einstein poster on his wall. Out of nowhere, he pops up and shoots both with airsoft guns. I guess they are shooting feathered darts or whatever. I don't know.
What the hell was this scene?
I don't know, man. I'm completely unaware of what these things are. I'm assuming airsoft, but not paintball. Like, also feathered darts. Like, what are these things?
I thought tranquilizers.
Like, no way, really?
Like tranquilizer darts? I mean, it comes into play later in the movie, but like seeing him just like peeking out of the blanket was the most ridiculous way to do this scene.
He looked high as shit, man. Just staring.
And like, how clean is their house?
Obviously not at all.
Exactly.
But they're just moving in, right? So like, wouldn't they have noticed this, or did they bring them with them? Are these Connecticut roaches or California roaches?
They're poster roaches.
Intelligent roaches.
I guess the idea is that he is not just a vigilante, but he is also a marksman. It comes into play one time later.
One time. And I think it's more for a fake out rather than what they can actually do. But anyway, Morgan's father, Stuart, is pulling in the driveway from his night shift driving a cab. He and Morgan have a quick chat to establish that this is Morgan's first day at the new school. I found this kind of strange that I don't know if it's actually established yet that they've moved from Connecticut, but moving from Connecticut, where his mother isn't working in California and his father just drives the night shift cab, seems like a weird decision to move all the way across the country for that one job.
Yeah, like they talk about how his dad, I don't know, was a real estate agent.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused, and we get into this later, but they kind of imply two things. They either moved because the dad lost the job, or they moved because Morgan was a troublemaker in school and needed a new school.
I think it was a perfect storm of both. I'm not entirely sure on that one.
Either reason, why would you go from Connecticut to California if money is an issue?
I know, it makes no sense.
Like, you think they would have moved to somewhere more inexpensive.
We're going to Michigan.
But I kind of like the dad.
The dad's amazing. I think he's one of the best characters in the movie.
This was the first time we see the dad, and it's probably one of the more minor interactions with him. And I kind of hadn't warmed up to him yet, but it was nothing offensive. But like every time he's on camera from here on out, he just gets more and more likable.
Yeah, he seemed like your stereotypical 80s teen movie dad, but grows on you every other time he's on screen.
Yeah.
We then get an 80s music montage of morning antics at the high school. A lot of dancing, a lot of stereos, and a lot of people closing their lockers.
I don't think even in the 80s this stuff happened on school campuses.
I have not once in my life seen anybody dragging around a giant boombox on a wagon.
That guy looks.
I mean,
so
I wish I
too.
did, but
It's like white guy dancing his way across too. Like, it was awful.
I honestly had flashbacks of Pump Up the Volume.
Oh man, it was bad.
We get the gang from earlier hanging out by their cars while Nick laments about how much he wishes he could get his hands on the guy from the other night. And Frankie basically tells him to shut up, and we see how much of an asshole Nick can really be at this point.
He's there to visit his younger sibling that's in school, right?
Yeah, right.
Because
that would make sense.
He's an adult, right? He's not in school.
Did you look up the ages of the actors when they filmed this movie?
I'm leaning towards Nick was 29.
30, yeah.
30.
Yeah, he was 30 years old when the movie came out.
Playing a high school student.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure Spader was around 25. I want to say Kim Richards was 21, and I think Robert Downey Jr. is 21 as well, maybe.
I mean,
so like everybody's kind of believable until you get to Nick.
Is this supposed to be a high school?
Oh yeah, it definitely is.
Would the story suffer at all if they were in college?
It would make much more sense.
Even community college?
That would make more sense.
Yep.
No, it's weird. It really is a messed up Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of high school movies like this in the 80s, but yeah, it definitely doesn't really make sense when you're watching it in 2021.
Just make it a college. Just make it a college. Everything still works.
Even Morgan getting yelled at by a security guard because he's riding his bike on campus.
What the hell was this?
Is that actually a thing? Are you not allowed to ride your bicycle on a high school campus?
I've never heard any knowledge of this. I mean, if he was going through the hallways in the building or something, but just outside.
That makes sense, yeah.
It didn't make any sense.
I don't know. Anyway, Nick sees him and decides that the gang's going to follow him to class.
Well, because they saw the slash on his jacket, right? Which was
exactly.
It was convenient writing. Okay, now here's how we can identify this guy.
And this is where we're introduced to Jimmy Parker, played by Robert Downey Jr. in the admin office.
Wearing way too much makeup.
A lot through the entire movie.
Yep.
But he asks a girl, and I didn't get the girl's name. I feel bad about that. But he asks her who Morgan is, and she says, "Who cares? His ass is grass now."
Yep.
What? How has news gotten out about Morgan?
Plot device.
There's like a massive chunk of this story that's just missing, because that's when Jimmy asks her for her knife,
which she conveniently carries around in her bra.
Yeah.
She just pulls it out of her shirt and gives it to him.
Yeah. And that's where I carry mine.
And if you're carrying a knife, you're probably carrying it for a reason, and that reason's probably not to give it to somebody who asks for it.
I always carry one in case Robert Downey Jr. asks for one.
Well, okay, I mean, if it was Robert Downey Jr., I'd give him a knife for sure. I'd find one to give him.
Yeah.
But not Jimmy Parker. Fuck Jimmy Parker.
Great name, though. It's much better than Morgan Hiller.
Whatever.
So the principal calls Morgan into the office, and we learn he's great at reading and writing, but also has an attitude problem. Stereotypical 80s angst movie, I guess.
Yeah, and this is where we kind of start hearing about, like, oh, he's like a problem child, and that's partially why they had to move or whatever. Because the was it like the principal or whatever?
Yeah, like, the principal says we'll not deal with it with your bullshit or rooftop rock concerts in between classes.
I get telling him not to deal with his bullshit, but is he known for throwing rooftop concerts? Is that a thing?
I guess. I mean, fucking show me that in this movie, man. That'd be awesome. It's going full on Beatles.
Punishable offense, too, apparently.
Fuck's sake. Anyway, he has to deal with enough losers at the school and doesn't want to deal with a good imitation, I believe is a quote.
Sure.
Awkward.
Yeah, it was
a really rough scene.
I don't get what they were trying to do with this principal. Was he supposed to be a good guy, a nice guy? Was he supposed to be... I don't get what they were doing with him.
Oh, there's a lot of shit that happens at the high school that I don't get.
Well, why don't we move on to more of it?
Well, in the next scene, they're in class and everybody's watching an old black and white movie about the Old West. Obviously filmed in like the 50s. This is undeniably set in the 80s. Why would they be using something that old as like an educational material?
Well, no budget, right? You see, they don't have any budget. They have to use whatever they have from, when the school was built.
I guess. I don't know, man. That was rough. I'm still confused about that. And talking about like how this isn't set in a community college or university and how it is actually set in a high school, everybody acts like they're in elementary school. There's two kids pretending to shoot each other with finger guns. And then Jimmy almost catches Morgan in the head when the switchblade pops out that he's been playing with. I don't get it, man. You're
nuts.
I don't know.
Man, you weren't in high school in the 80s. You don't know, man.
I guess we can go with that. But, like, they have strong words. That makes sense. Then Jimmy gives Morgan the knife, saying to take it as he's going to need it.
Yeah,
and just leaves him confused.
For some reason, he just decides to help Morgan. Not like they've built any sort of bond yet. He just decides, I don't want to see Nick mess this guy up. Here's a knife.
Yeah. But the thing is, they don't bond. They don't bond at all, because the next scene, Jimmy just asks Morgan if he likes music and wants to go see his band that night. So now they're friends, even though Jimmy almost just stabbed him in the head and then gave him the knife. There's no back and forth. Like, you explain it.
Well, you see, Iron Man and Ultron are enemies. So...
Man, have you seen Less Than Zero?
No.
In that one, Spader's a drug dealer, and Robert Downey is his like junkie that he's always selling to. So they do have a bit of a history together.
They've done multiple movies. Oh, wow. I was just going to say that Morgan Hiller and Jimmy Parker are the exact opposite of Ultron and Iron Man, and therefore the exact opposite of being enemies would be friends.
I guess. I guess. You remember that time that Ultron almost stabbed Iron Man in the head with a switchblade? Accidentally while they were watching that Western movie in high school history class?
Yeah, and then Morgan tells him something like, be careful with that or you'll cut your balls off or something.
Yeah. And then Iron Man's like, it's cool. Do you want to come see my band play tonight?
Isn't it at the band venue, the concert venue, where on the wall is spray painted like the New Avengers or something like that? Yeah,
it is.
There you go. It's all coming together, man.
This is a long-term booking, man. Morgan sees Nick and Frankie playing on his bicycle while Nick's friends speed around them in cars, one of which narrowly misses hitting Morgan. Another punk sprays Morgan in the face with red spray paint, and all the students are just standing around laughing at him.
That is like the least permanent spray paint I've ever seen.
Yes, because he just wipes it off of his face.
Yeah, it was like I grabbed the Kool-Aid in a spray bottle instead of paint by accident this morning.
I'm more concerned about the fact that nobody's doing anything except standing around and watching and laughing at him, actually.
They don't want to risk getting on Nick's bad side. He's a bad guy.
Obviously, he's been held back for like 8 years. Jesus Christ.
8 years would still put him in like college age, man.
I know. Oh, God.
It's a good decade, easy.
He's always dressed like one of the Warriors, too.
Okay. Well, this is where I guess they have their first confrontation.
Yeah. Well, Nick asks the crowd if he should give Morgan his bike back, and everyone says no and gives a thumbs down. Like, this school is just populated by assholes.
So why are we cheering on the bad guy?
I don't know. It's like, who's that guy? Oh, that's Nick. He's the dirtbag gang leader around town. Oh, who's the other guy? I don't know. He's a new kid. Probably full of shit. We should probably hate him, right? Yeah. Let's say, cheer the bad guy. Go, Nick.
Well, I mean, you see, this guy, he's a bad guy, but he still wants the crowd's approval. So he's definitely going to ask them if he should give the bike back.
Yeah. Well, Nick does place the bike on the ground and tells Morgan to come get it. The music in the scene is really good. Again, like the intro. Actually, it might be a different version of the same music.
Yeah, I don't know.
Morgan picks up the bike and starts to walk away with it as Nick's friend speeds towards him and smashes into the bicycle. Morgan picks it up and walks away as the crowd disperses.
He sure gave him plenty of time.
A lot of time, but that was super dangerous, man. Even as a stunt, that's crazy.
But, like, this guy's just standing there revving his engine. Morgan could have just walked to the side. There was like a shot. It was like cars parked, lining down either side of like the area that the guy's going to drive down. Kind of like building a barrier. Morgan could have just stepped to the side while this guy was spending 5 minutes revving his engine and lighting his cigarette. And it's like, all right, I'm between two cars. You're not going to hit me now. Like,
well, I guess the rules of chicken in this cinematic world are the exact same as Last Action Hero. Expecting to like veer out at the last second and nothing.
Yeah. I don't know what to take from this. If it was like setting a tone precedent, like if Morgan's showing he doesn't back down, I don't know what they were going for here.
Yeah, I think you could say that it's Morgan not backing down, but also how dangerous Nick's gang can be.
Well, and that's the thing. You don't know this gang. For all you know, that guy will just hit you.
Yeah. Or at the very least, one of them will snap off the antenna and swing it at you.
Yeah, this isn't the mean streets of Connecticut, man. Smarten up.
So we go back to Morgan's house, where he's working on his bike when his mom comes home and asks him about his day and what happened to his bike and if it's starting again. He says nothing happened. It isn't starting again. It was an accident. His mother asks if the person has insurance, and Morgan responds with, "Insurance? This isn't Connecticut. Nobody has insurance here." Explain that one.
What insurance would somebody have in this situation?
I don't know. But also, why doesn't anybody in California have insurance?
Because they live free and wild, and they don't care if you hit your $500 bike.
I guess. And what is it if it's starting again?
I'm guessing that's the troublemaking.
His rooftop rock concerts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of bikes get ruined on those.
It's weird, man. I don't know. Like, at this point, I wasn't really sure where they were in America. Also completely uncertain as to why Morgan's being such a dick to his parents. His mom seems irrational, but his dad is always trying to be the good guy and relate.
I definitely got tension between him and his mom.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like he was... Like, he does lash out at his dad here a bit, but I think it was just the frustration from dealing with his mom. Almost like his dad's trying to play peacemaker, but he's getting caught in the middle of it.
Yeah, and that tends to happen throughout the movie. But
yeah.
It's more like the blame is being put on Morgan for not being good to his mother, when she's being very difficult, and then when she's confronted about not being nice to him later in the movie, her reaction is the same as his to her. So it's like there's nothing really being repaired here. It's just a strained relationship that doesn't get fixed.
I mean, even in this scene, she asks if, like, it is starting over again, but I'm pretty sure she has a legitimate reason. He left for his first day and came back with a totaled bike.
I guess maybe she just doesn't want to move back across the country again for no reason.
I don't even know if it's necessarily moved back, but it's like, we left apparently because he causes trouble. Took one day for him to come home with a totaled bike. I'm not saying that she shouldn't give him the benefit of the doubt, but I don't think there's any reason to not go down that line of questioning.
I see your rationale. I don't agree with it, but I see it.
I'm just saying, it's context, right? But if he's a troublemaker, and they don't necessarily shy away from the fact that he's a troublemaker or was a troublemaker, I don't think that there's any reason that this wouldn't raise red flags. One day and you totaled your bike?
I'm starting to wonder now if I actually got roped into the script and I'm just siding with Morgan because I'm supposed to.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I don't really necessarily side with the mother here, because there's obviously better ways you can do it, because she just starts accusing him. But I can see why she would be on that train of thought, is all I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, that's reasonable. You know where we go next, though, right?
No. I think
concert in a warehouse.
I turned the movie off at this point.
It's bad. It's a bad scene. We finally get to see Jimmy's band playing their show at the warehouse. It's actually Jim Carroll's band. I don't know if you know Jim Carroll or not.
No.
Have you ever heard of the Basketball Diaries?
I've
movie
heard of.
with Leo DiCaprio.
I've heard of.
It's based off of Jim Carroll's autobiography of the same name.
Huh.
Yeah. Anyway, his shitty band's playing to a group of kids that are the worst dancers I've ever seen.
I don't remember concerts, at least in the 90s when I was in school, where everybody got out and danced.
You could have just ended with, I don't remember concerts.
Like, I'm just...
Not in this world anymore.
It's the 80s. Everybody's dancing. Sure. You know, the part that really struck me here is when I saw Jimmy in the school, I thought, oh, this guy's kind of like maybe a bit of a loser. You know, like maybe that's why he wants to make friends with Morgan. He doesn't have friends. And then here, it's like all the girls want him. He's the drummer and he's blowing kisses to them. And it's like, okay, so is he a cool guy then? I don't.
No, that wasn't for him, man. It's filmed to make it look like it's for him. But when Jim Carroll gets off the band, he goes through all the girls and they follow him. Jimmy gets up, stumbles like a dummy, knocks over his drums, sets them up, turns around, and then there's this old woman standing there giving him like the sweet face.
I saw that, but I thought maybe that was just another one. I didn't.
No, I'm pretty sure that was the only one there for him.
But it made me think, like, what is this woman doing at the concert? She doesn't fit in with the clientele.
There were people there for every age group. There was one dude with some weird comb over and a mustache that looked like he was probably 45. And he was just leaning against the stage. I'm like, oh, maybe security. And you see him later and you're like, no, he's just there for the show.
Oh, he's the senior in school that's tutoring Nick.
And it gets weirder from here, man. Because
no, how could it get weirder?
Well, I really enjoyed it because it shows Morgan trying to hitchhike to the show because obviously his bike is fucked. But then he just steals a Porsche.
Yep.
Who leaves their keys in the Porsche?
Dude, it's California. Nobody has insurance. I don't need insurance. My car's not going to get stolen.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It does come into play later on too, which I found pretty funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, he gets to the show and he's talking with Jimmy and Jim as they head back to the stage for the next part of their set. The music starts and Morgan sees Frankie and aggressively makes her dance with him.
Aggressively?
What her name is.
Holy shit. Like,
there is no getting away with that today.
Not only just is there no getting away from that, but like,
there's nobody who in their right mind would even try to do that.
No. and like, honestly, this becomes a trend in the entire movie to me. Mm-hmm. Every guy in Frankie's life just takes her. Right?
Yeah.
Just try, like, she's a possession.
Yep.
And the other thing is, Morgan falls head over heels at love and first sight. Like, they don't even have an interaction. He wants her. Like, he wants her bad. Yep. It's just like, you've never just seen an attractive woman and moved on with your life?
Like, and I'm trying to, like, she is a stunningly gorgeous woman, but I'm trying to look at it from Morgan's perspective and being like, aren't you that girl I saw hanging out with that gang that tried to rob that guy who ended up ruining my jacket after I got them to spray somebody in the face with spray paint and wasted a soda?
Yep.
What's your name?
Like, his only knowledge of her is that she's part of a gang that does things that are shitty and that he thinks she's hot, and that's it. But he's head over heels and is like, I'm gonna, like, dance with you whether you want it or not.
And I feel like the editors are like, I don't know what the fuck to do now. Dance montage.
Yeah, it was bad.
It was bad. It was really bad. It was even a bad montage. And then, like, Frankie, for some reason, like, not for some reason, Frankie is understandably angry until she's just not.
Well, yeah, this guy's just invading her space. Like, get out of me. Like, no means no.
And then she doesn't care, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she tries to make it sound like she's not saying no because she doesn't want to dance with him. She's saying no because Nick is going to hurt you.
I guess.
But that seems weird to me, too.
It is weird. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, your idea makes more sense than mine, because mine's just straight up confusion. I don't understand what the hell's going on in this scene at this point. But Nick does see Morgan and Frankie together and is not happy. Sends his gang into the crowd of only about 30 people, and somehow they get lost.
I mean, Ben, these aren't the brightest of guys. They've been held back in school like 10 years.
But, like, how do they lose sight? It's not a large group of people.
It's all the dancing and moving. They can't keep up.
Yeah, well, they end up spinning around through all the different people in this massive crowd, and one of them ends up spinning around dancing with Morgan, and then they get to Frankie and have her taken home. Morgan's confronted in the parking lot where he's assaulted, and Nick steals the Porsche thinking it's Morgan's, eventually getting pulled over by the police. And I thought that was actually quite funny and some good writing.
I really liked that. But all I could think of later is that Nick, who's clearly not being viewed as a juvenile, got out pretty easily for stealing a Porsche.
Yeah. I mean, that could just be their faulty legal system. What you really have to consider is, did Morgan leave the keys in the Porsche?
No, he was pulling them out of his pocket when he was walking towards it. Like,
okay.
It was pretty clear that he was setting them up at that point. Because, like, he saw them.
That shows potential, quote, ownership.
Yeah, like, he saw them eyeing him up, right? He's not an idiot. Clearly, they're not happy with him. So he kind of, like, you can see him, like, stumbling to get the keys out of his pocket. Like, he's trying to make it seem like, oh, I'm going to make it look like I'm going to get away from them in the Porsche. Because he really didn't care if they stole it.
Obviously, he assumed that somebody would have reported it being stolen after he took it.
Yeah. Probably didn't want it anyway for, like, a long period of time to get caught with it.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, I mean, that's when, like, I think even Jimmy's like, oh, man, I'm so sorry about your car, or, like, your Porsche. And he's like, yeah. I don't own a Porsche.
Yeah. It was good. It was cheeky.
Yeah, I liked it.
Well, the next day, Frankie and Morgan kind of flirt in front of his locker. And okay, before I get into this, you notice how this movie just out of nowhere will take some really dark turns?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes from being a really light, easygoing, stereotypical 80s teen romantic drama comedy, and then just goes like hardcore drama and almost suspense.
There is multiple times that happens.
Well, Frankie walks away and he opens his locker door, revealing a dead rat hanging inside with blood all over the inside, all over his books, everything.
Yep. Who did that?
It would have to be Nick and his gang, right? But was the locker locked? And if it was, how did they get inside?
And were they even released from the police yet?
Well, we don't know who all was arrested.
Well, it was the three of them in the car, I would imagine. Do you think that if he was in jail, because, I mean, they make it seem like a couple days later he gets out, because they're like, oh, Nick's out, right? Do you think he used his one phone call to tell one of his other thugs, go leave a rat in this guy's locker? Can
you imagine it's actually just a really dark side of Frankie that we don't see in the movie?
Yeah, I don't know. This was dumb.
All right.
It was dark. You're not wrong about that, but it was dumb too.
Very, very dark, very bloody. This movie does have a fair amount of blood and violence in it.
Oh yeah.
Morgan gets home from school and finds his yuppie brother and his mother drinking wine and laughing about his successes.
I just wanted to punch both of them.
I know, it perfectly set up I think his name was Brian. Yeah, set up Brian's character as just that yuppie asshole.
Yeah, but like, it's so phony.
It is incredibly phony.
Ugh.
The sweater tied around his neck and his fucking tennis togs or whatever they're called.
It was bad. It's bad.
Well, Morgan asks to borrow his car, but Brian says he's taking their mother to a movie until their dad gets home. But I'm pretty sure he drives the night shift, right?
Yes.
So it's daylight, and he's just going to take their mother to a movie until like 8 in the morning? Yeah.
See, the script she gives and she takes.
Oh, God. Morgan and Brian argue about how Morgan lives his life before about how Morgan lives his life before he storms off.
Yeah, Morgan gets pretty pissed about not getting that car pretty quickly. He had a bit of a short temper.
I mean, he has been through a pretty stressful day.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he just asked, like, hey, can I have the car? I'm taking the mom to the movie. Oh, you never do anything for it. Like, he just gets really mad really quick.
So Morgan's at the bus stop. Okay, this is weird. Morgan's at the bus stop when he gets chased by Nick's car. And that was a really cool car, the brown car.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like he's actually going to be run down before revealing that it's actually Jimmy driving.
Yeah, he went as far as to try and climb a fence that had barbed wire at the top.
He was that scared.
And Jimmy, like, if he was, joking, right? Because he comes out laughing, he took it really far. There was
if he slipped up once, Morgan's dead.
Yeah, there was a couple of those where it was near misses, and it's like, if Morgan didn't make that dodge, your joke would have killed him. Hilarious.
The tonal shifts in this movie, I don't get, man.
So anyway, they decide to then, no problem. Bygones be bygones. Let's go cruising.
Yeah. Cue the joyriding montage. We get Frankie, Ronnie, and Feather, who are at the local burger joint. Feather says Frankie has the hots for Morgan, and she gets upset, but I don't know why, because she seems to go back and forth pretty easily on that one. When Ronnie says she isn't ready to leave, Frankie just rams the burger in her face.
What the hell was that?
I don't know.
Like, we're here for lunch. I have a burger that's got like one bite out of it. Let's go. I have a burger with like one bite out of it.
And she doesn't I could see her grabbing it and shoving it out of her hands, but like driving the whole thing into her face is just a horrible thing to do to a person.
And they must have had some plans predetermined, because she just leaves Feather. No problem there. Yeah, you're cool.
None.
You want to finish your burger? No. You're the one that's coming with me.
But this is separated from the Morgan Brian scene by one scene. On the other side of that joyriding scene, we get to see Morgan be a complete asshole for no real reason, as we've determined. Then we get the joyriding. Then we get to see Frankie to be an asshole for almost no reason. And these are the people we're supposed to root for.
Well, you see, they're similar, right? They're both assholes, so they belong together. You can appreciate that. Even assholes need love.
I guess. Name of your next album.
Then they see Jimmy and Morgan in Nick's car, and just assume it's Nick.
Yeah. Jimmy tells Morgan that Frankie belongs to Nick. And one of the weirdest responses in the entire movie is Morgan with Lincoln freed the slaves. Like, what? Yeah? What?
Yep.
Why? Why would you say this?
Yep.
That's quite the comparison to make.
Well, you see, I have nothing.
Yeah. I wonder if they go back and rewatch themselves in this movie, if they're like, that was a rough go. Or they're like, fucking nailed it.
I don't know, man.
Anyway, Frankie sees the car and thinks, like you said before, that Nick got out of prison. She and Ronnie hop in, and before noticing it isn't Nick driving? Like, what if somebody who had a similar car just kind of stopped?
Yep.
But it's fine, because, while she's mad at first, she then is laughing, and then she's mad again later on. Then she wants out of the car, but Morgan won't stop, showing how we're not even really supposed to like Morgan. But the whole time, Jimmy and Ronnie are making out in the back of the car.
I'd say Ronnie's making out with Jimmy, because she's going at him hard.
Yeah. She's hilarious. That's a great character and acted very well in this movie.
I had no problem with her. I liked her.
Yeah. Anyway, they pull over at a golf course country club and pretend to be members 1 year before the same scene is in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Well, at least it was before.
I never realized how much of a ripoff that scene was from Bueller.
And they go to the country club because they're hungry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a burger, the perfect burger.
I didn't even think about that.
If you just finished your food with the burger.
Oh, these characters, these kids.
Yeah. If only there was somewhere we could have gotten food prior to this.
Well, they schmooze with members of the club, just like Ferris Bueller. Then Morgan has a musical number at the piano, and this appears to be the moment that Frankie falls for him.
Did not like this scene at all.
Terrible.
Well, I should clarify. I like the scene of them at the country club, like all of them mingling, Ronnie telling stories, Jimmy like taking food from the one guy. Like that was fun. The song part is what I didn't like.
The song was very 80s. Very.
Yeah.
I was okay with the fact that it was in the movie, but it was actually just a really bad song.
Sure.
Which is weird for a movie that has such a good soundtrack.
I just didn't like the scene. I don't care what song it was. Frankie, just sit on this piano and look pretty. I'll sing to you. What? Why?
Totally off topic, but This is my stream of consciousness when I was writing these notes, because after I wrote, this appears to be the moment that Frankie falls for him, I have, wait a minute, why did they move from Connecticut again? Morgan's a teenager, Brian's a lawyer, their mother does nothing, and their father drives a cab. And then I just went right back into the scene.
This sounds good, man.
Anyway, we get a character development scene with Morgan and Frankie at fountains outside the country club. We learn that Morgan's father lost his business before they moved out there. Frankie's mom died from cancer the previous year. So they go dancing at a Jack Mack and the Heart Attack show. I guess we're meant to assume that Ronnie and Jimmy were left behind at the country club because we don't see them for a while.
So the dad is later doing a real estate or studying for real estate, and he makes a comment about how real estate law is not very different in California from Connecticut.
Yes.
You know you don't have to lose your business to still just be a real estate agent, right?
Well, there are different laws from state to state.
There are different laws, but if you work for like a real estate brokerage, or if you run one and it goes under, you're still a licensed real estate agent. You can still sell real estate.
Very true. I didn't think about this.
Instead, let's move to California and drive a cab.
Makes sense. I mean, Morgan has to go to a school, and are there any other schools in the country outside of Connecticut?
Well, I mean, Connecticut just had the one, right? So we had to move. There wasn't another option, especially for high schools, right? Not colleges. Definitely. Colleges, you could be like, oh, hey, you're in college. Only certain colleges will accept you, as opposed to high schools where it's like, we'll just enroll you in another one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, next we find ourselves at Frankie's apartment. Frankie and Nick. Oh, God. This is a rough scene. Anyway, Frankie and Nick are having an argument about spending time with Morgan. He freaks out and shakes her until she calls him out. He tries to apologize, but she wants nothing to do with it, and his response is to force himself on her and rape her.
Yep.
Dark fucking movie sometimes, man.
There's nothing you can say here, man.
No. I'm not entirely sure why they would go between such ridiculous comedy and then such intense real world problems. I don't think there's an actual commentary that they're trying to make here. I think it's more so just for a shock factor, and I think it's a bad call.
It just makes Frankie look worse, and it's made to make Nick look like a bad person, but
we already hate Nick. We don't need to see this.
We already hate Nick, and
we know that Frankie's had a really tough life, and we just want to see her succeed. So making her life worse and making Nick even more despisable, I don't know.
It's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. They already have the impact that they want, the reaction that they want to these characters without doing this.
Exactly. I agree. Yeah, my next note is, what the actual fuck?
This is gonna go down as the episode where you swear the most, and it's for
I'm so sorry.
And it's for Tuff Turf. If there's a movie that's gonna draw your ire, it's Tuff Turf.
We're at the men's locker room at the high school. Nick and his gang corner Morgan after the showers and beat the shit out of him.
Oh my god, this was brutal.
What did they put in those towels?
One of them put a lock, right? Like a metal lock?
Like combination lock?
Yes. And they showed the other one, I can't remember. It was also something kind of the same size in metal. But imagine a combination lock in a sock. That would hurt. And
they messed him up.
They beat the shit out of him.
And this is right after our laughing around at the country club. We have
No. There wasn't right after. We had a rape scene first.
Well, that's what I'm saying. After the country club, which is full of jokes and laughs, we have a rape scene and then a horrible beatdown. Yeah. And then before leaving, Nick scolds Morgan for messing around with his, quote, property.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's just move on.
It's dark.
Back at Morgan's house, we get the scene that you already talked about, where his parents are discussing the similarities between California and Connecticut real estate laws. Morgan's father goes to check on him, and Morgan admits that he screwed up. He really is trying to be a good father. Stuart is. And telling Morgan life's all about screwing up and making mistakes. It's how you find out who you are and what you believe in.
Yeah, I think he says, life isn't a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived. So live it. And it's just like, his dad is so nice and likable.
Well, this is a callback to Pump Up the Volume for me, where you've got the parents in that movie who are doing whatever they can to try and understand what their kid's going through.
Yeah, but in that one, it was both parents.
Not receptive to it. Yeah, I know, but it's the same scenario, like Stuart in this movie, and then the parents in the other film. They're really trying. I feel that it's not being reciprocated.
But in this one, Morgan is a little bit more understanding with his dad. Like in this scene in particular, like he's confiding in his dad. He's asking him for advice. He's admitting, like, he shows his vulnerability to his dad. He won't to his mom.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a little different because it does seem like Morgan does care about his father.
Yes, he does. And it's hard for the viewer not to as well.
Oh man, I at this point, the father is like the most likable character for me.
Yeah. Well, he's doing everything right. He's moved his family to another state to try and start a new life, a successful life for all of them. He's always making sure that his son, who's proven to be a problem child, is getting all the opportunity he can to succeed. He's giving him pep talks. He's checking in on him. He's telling him that, you know, maybe you should try and communicate more with your mother rather than just have like standoff arguments with her. Doesn't really say much about Brian though. I don't think he really likes his eldest son.
Maybe he just realizes that there's no need to talk about Brian to Morgan. Whereas the mom,
he's a success. I could see that being a resentful discussion.
The mom constantly wants to tell Morgan, why can't you be more like Brian? And it's almost an insult to him. Whereas the dad he doesn't talk about Brian, but we also don't see the dad in scenes with Brian. So you can just kind of assume that the dad doesn't throw Brian in his face like that. When he's talking to Morgan, his focus is on Morgan.
Mm-hmm. I like Stuart.
Yeah, man.
Anyway, Frankie's doing her hair and makeup, reminiscing about how they were acting at the country club, which is pretty funny. Her father calls out to her, letting her know that Nick is on his way over. Then she hears music outside and sees Morgan, who heads up the fire escape to see her. I like the scene, but she's shocked when she sees his bruised face. And yeah, like we said, he's messed up from the beatdown in the locker room.
I'm pretty sure he didn't even get hit in the face, though. He tries to run away, and they get him in the back, and then the whole time he's laying stomach down on a bench, and they're hitting him in the back.
I felt like he got punched first, and then when he was down, they started whipping him with the towels.
Maybe I missed that one then.
I could just be making this up too, but yeah, his face is all dinged up either way. There's a back and forth about why they should or shouldn't be together. And then Nick knocks on her bedroom door, but before Morgan leaves, he gets Frankie to agree to go to his house for dinner the next night.
Still not sure why he's so in love with her.
I don't know. 80s writing, man.
At least now they've spent a day at the country club together.
Yeah. Nick and Frankie's father enter her room, and we find out that Nick's asked Frankie's father if he can marry her. She's completely blindsided and visibly unhappy.
He asks the father if he can marry her, not her.
Well, it just goes to show you how old Nick really is, because that's a very antiquated way.
Yes. That's how they did it with when he was in school 20 years prior.
Yeah. Back when they had that new movie, that West Side Story.
Yeah, but like, he doesn't even think to ask her. Doesn't have a ring. Doesn't like. It's just, you're gonna marry me.
And you could tell it was such like a panic move on his behalf, because this way it forces her into marriage. She doesn't have to worry about her and Morgan. He's going about it the way that he thinks is respectable, because he's asking the father, which makes him look a little bit nicer than we all know he really is. It's a real, like, planned out dick move.
Yeah.
At school, Jimmy gives Morgan a new bike and says it's consolation prize. I'm not sure how words spread that quickly, but anyway, Morgan has no idea what he's talking about.
Dude,
and then Jimmy breaks the news that
just
Nick
like
is marrying Frankie.
Just like the very first scene when everybody knew that Nick was going to beat up Morgan. If there's news in the school,
anyway.
If there's news in the school, everybody knows it immediately.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, it was...
everybody else knows. So Morgan, I don't know why he didn't ask anybody else. He just tries to track down Frankie and ask her. Like,
it's nice of Jimmy to give him a bike, though.
Yeah, really. How rich is Jimmy? Why couldn't he have bought his own knife at school?
I don't think he's rich, man.
Where did the bike come from?
I don't know.
Because I thought he bought it.
I don't know if he says he bought it.
Okay.
But I mean, we see a scene later of Morgan talking to his brother in the apartment, I guess.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like they're rich, man.
You're right. It is a pretty rundown spot.
It is a rundown spot. I mean, the brother in that scene is drinking beer. We know it's beer because it's a plain white can with like Times New Roman font that just says beer on it.
I mean, that's pretty solid branding, man. No question about what it is.
So anyway, yeah, that's there. He's not rich.
All right. Well, back at the Hiller's house, Morgan's mom is being overly critical of Morgan's taste in women, while his father defends his choices. Good old Stuart being the dad again. Frankie arrives. Everyone sits down for dinner. I actually really enjoyed this dinner scene.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with it.
Frankie's embarrassed when she notices Paige is judging her by her table manners. I thought that was great character work.
Mm-hmm.
Nick and his gang spy on them through a window, which I found kind of creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, man, but I didn't know where everybody in my high school lived back then.
I mean, first of all, it's far from the creepiest thing Nick's doing. And I mean, how did they know which locker was Nick's or Morgan's for the rat? How did they know? Like, it's just go with it, man. Just go with it.
Yeah. Well, Frankie spills wine on herself when Paige, the mother, mentions her mother, and she goes to the kitchen where she and Morgan have a spat, and she storms off, saying that while she doesn't belong to Nick, she also doesn't belong to Morgan. Frankie heads one way down the sidewalk, and Morgan goes the other. Strong scene. Probably one of the strongest scenes in the movie, I would say.
I would say so. Probably some of the best character work we get from the leads.
Yeah. Nick and his crew drive after Frankie, catching up to her. Nick sweet talks her into the car. After driving around for hours, Nick lies and says they're out of gas and he has no money. So he gives Frankie a watch that she gave him and tells her to go to the cabbie across the street and try and trade it for money. The ruse they were pulling at the beginning of the movie, basically, more or less, a little bit different. She refuses, and Nick gets her to admit that she won't do it because the specific cabbie that he's talking about is Morgan's father, Stuart. Nick forces her out of the car, and she runs over to Stuart to warn him, but Nick and crew jump him before he can get away. He put up a surprisingly decent fight until Nick pulls out a gun and shoots him twice.
That escalated quickly.
So quickly.
But
like
yeah,
we were talking about before, dark turns in this movie just happen out of nowhere.
First of all, Stuart is super nice. Like, she's warning him, and he's even like, "We need to get you out of here."
Exactly.
Right? Two, if Nick didn't pull a gun, Stuart was kicking their asses.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he would have won that fight hands down.
Like, he was beating the shit out of three. I want to say kids, but come on. They weren't.
I felt so bad. Like, I actually felt bad for the character.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure when I was watching it, I was like, no.
I was so afraid he was going to die.
Me too.
So afraid he was going to die.
He's too nice to die.
Yeah.
Nick and his gang run off, and Frankie tries to tend to Stuart. I have in my notes right after that. Thank God he doesn't die.
Yeah. Shit.
But at the hospital, Morgan's reassured his father's very strong and will be fine. Morgan consoles his mother in the waiting room, and Brian shows up to do the same, but gives Morgan a look as if he's the one to blame.
Yeah, he was nowhere near it.
Yeah. But Frankie arrives, and now it's time for everyone to cry.
Where did Frankie go?
I don't know.
Like
I don't know, man.
Came out of the stairway. I assume she called for help, and then what? Just took off for a while? I don't...
No idea.
Yep.
But at Morgan's house, he tells Frankie that you can't hold on to anything until you let it go, which is a weird statement. I mean, I guess it's along the lines of if you truly love something, let it go.
Yeah, that line didn't work for me, man.
Whatever the fuck it meant, I don't know. Well, it led to sexy times, either way.
Yeah, sure.
That was... I don't think the movie needed the sex scene, let alone the nudity in it.
No, it didn't. It didn't. Like, they're already going through the emotional ringer. They don't need it.
Which again makes me curious as to who the target audience is for this one as well. Because if it's a high school movie, high school kids probably aren't going to see this. Do you remember what it was rated?
No, I didn't see, actually, no.
Because with the amount of swearing, violence, and nudity, you would expect it to probably be R in the States in 85.
It's very... IMDb says R. Rated R.
Yeah, so nobody under 18 is allowed to see this movie.
Well, that's good, because none of the students in the movie are under 18. I can't let that go.
No, that's good. Morgan drops Frankie off at the store her father owns. Nick shows up and slaps the shit out of Frankie and her father.
Yeah.
He pushes her father through a display and slams Frankie on the ground, screaming about how she doesn't care. Forcing Frankie to call Morgan, then taking the phone from her when she answers and tells him to meet at the warehouse.
Good thing he knows which warehouse.
Yeah, because there's only one warehouse in California, right?
My guess is that it was the venue where the concert took place.
Obviously.
Right? Like, because at least then it's like, okay, this is at least a place we know we've all gone to, and maybe it's a common hangout for them, whatever.
I think it's safe to assume at this point the wedding's off, yes?
I mean, not yet.
I mean...
It's not like she had a choice at this point anyway.
Frankie's dad got thrown through that display.
That ain't gonna stop him.
I guess.
That's not gonna stop Nick.
Well, Brian shows up and argues with Morgan, because that's what Brian does. Why is Brian even here at this point?
I don't know.
I mean, Morgan leaves a note for Jimmy with Jimmy's brother in the scene you mentioned before where he's drinking beer. Well, we're getting into it now. Scoping out the warehouse, Morgan sees an armed Nick, his gang, and Frankie inside. Morgan gets the drop on one of the crew with his airsoft guns and knocks him out. I'm pretty sure the guns were just meant for intimidation here because they're not going to do anything except kill cockroaches.
Well, and that's why I thought they were tranquilizers. Because I thought he gets the thug and it's like, okay, they're darts and they just like tranquilize him, not kill him.
No, I don't think so.
I'd say, I'd say go back and look at it, but...
Yeah, because I don't think that his parents would allow him to have two of those. And he wouldn't be able to buy them himself, unless that was something else he did in his troubled youth back in Connecticut.
This is where you want to question the logic in the movie.
Okay, sorry.
This is where you start to have a problem with what we've been watching.
All right. Well, he takes out two more with a falling sign. Nick tries to shoot him, but Frankie knocks him over. Nick and Morgan have a back and forth until some of his crew grab Morgan. Nick's about to shoot him until Jimmy shows up and unleashes two dogs on the gang. Nick shoots Jimmy in the leg, and he and Morgan are back at it. Nick's about to slit Morgan's throat, but Frankie pulls the gun on him. She actually tries to shoot him, which is fucking awesome. But the gun is empty. Nick's furious, grabs Frankie and throws her on the floor, knocking her out. Morgan goes after him with an axe before beating the shit out of him and knocking him off the balcony to the ground below. This movie, man.
See, Nick should have known. This guy's a vigilante. You don't mess with him.
I don't... Morgan is just like, out of nowhere, he'll just get incredibly violent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Frankie should be with him.
I mean...
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I mean, better than Nick.
Sure.
But... And on top of all of this crazy, intense violence, the movie ends with Morgan, Frankie, Ronnie, and Jimmy at another Jack Mack and the Heart Attack concert. And credits roll.
Whew, that was an experience, man.
I think it was a great experience.
So, where are the police in this movie?
It's California.
Nick steals a car. He's out of jail in a couple of days. Stewart gets shot twice in the street. And there's no police officers at the hospital to take statements.
No.
Nick throws Frankie's dad through a display at a liquor store, which you figure would be set up with cameras, silent alarms, maybe even a shotgun behind the counter. Nobody goes after Nick.
Smashes Frankie into the ground.
Morgan says he's going after him, and his brother says, if you leave, I'll have the police pick you up within 24 hours. That's wishful thinking, bud. They haven't been anywhere yet.
Yeah.
But at the same time...
Also with Morgan having the shit kicked out of him, beaten out of him in the locker room, you think somebody at the school would have noticed. Or at the very least, I don't see why he wouldn't have reported that to the police.
There are no police. I've decided there are no police. Anywhere in this movie, there are no police.
And then Jimmy gets shot in the leg. And then Frankie gets slammed into the ground and knocked unconscious again. No police.
Well, I mean, there's no police. There's none.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
So let's.
This is directed by Fritz Kiersch, who also did. I think the first movie was Children of the Corn. So there is definitely a firm staple of 80s directing that carried over into this movie, and I think that's the main saving grace of it, because this story goes all over the place.
So it has a Metascore of 37 and an IMDb score of 6.2 out of 10. I did not look up Rotten Tomatoes.
I've got those.
All right, let's hear them.
The audience score, 59%.
Okay.
You want to take a guess at the tomato meter, the critics?
They either thought it was brilliant or drivel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to guess 42%.
17.
Oof.
It is so much better than a 17.
Nope.
I thought it was a great movie. No?
Do you have anything on budget before we get into final thoughts and awards?
I couldn't find anything about the budget. I saw that it made $9.4 million. I rounded up. It was like 9.36 or something like that. I don't think anybody in the movie was really that big of a star. I think this is the first starring role for James Spader. Kim Richards had been acting for quite a while. Robert Downey, not Junior at this point, just Robert Downey, had a bit of a career, but nothing crazy. So I don't think they really had to spend a lot on the actors. But I don't know, man. Like, I don't know how much this movie would have cost.
I mean, there wasn't too many effects, and there wasn't too many sets. I know that they recorded in a school that was going to be closing down anyway.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Apparently the school that they were recording in was gonna get demolished. So they were able to do whatever they wanted with it. It was actually on Good Bad Flicks that I saw they were saying that. Because the negative was that if they needed to do any reshoots, they wouldn't be able to because the school would be gone a week later. But it did give them the freedom to do whatever they wanted with the school because it was just going to get torn down. And I have to imagine that probably would have saved them a little bit in location if it was a space that was going to get demolished anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Well, do you want to move on to awards?
Yeah, for sure, man. So why don't we start with worst performance?
I would have to say it is Claudette Nevins as Paige Hiller.
Ding, ding, ding. Sweep it. I had her too. My God. When you...
Like, you can play an annoying character well. There's no excuse to play a character like that so flat as she did.
Overacting. Just...
Yeah, overacting, but like...
with no emotion.
Yet somehow underperforming. It's weird.
Yeah, it was easily the worst performance. I don't even know how much more I can say about it. Like, her scenes were not good, and it wasn't just the writing. I tried to look at it from that standpoint. Is it just the material she was given? And it's not. It's not. She just didn't do a good job.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to the character, so there is an argument to make there. But you could at least try and put your own spin on it, and it just felt really bland, really flat. And like, yeah, we're supposed to hate her, but that came through in the writing, not the performance. Anyway, I have a tie for best performance. Do you want to go first?
My best performance was just James Spader.
Mm-hmm.
Could be biased, but I mean, even though I didn't like a lot of the scripting motivations, like how he just like was in love with Frankie, that wasn't based on his performance. That's how the role was written. But when it came to the actual acting, I got everything that I needed from him when it came to emotional conveyance, to believability. He did a great job with the crap he was given to work with.
Yeah, he did a great job with just looks.
Oh, he
emotes very well.
Very well.
Yeah, he is one of my two tied for best performance. The other is Olivia Barash as Ronnie.
Okay.
While she wasn't crucial to the plot by any means, but when she was on screen, I was always watching because she was always being hilarious.
She was fantastic, and I think the reason that I didn't really think of her for best performance is just the limited screen time. And I know that Paige Hiller was a minor role if you think of camera time as well, but it was more impactful to the actual plot.
Yes.
So I fully agree with you. Ronnie was acted very well, but just didn't have enough impact for me to be like the best performance.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd say best performance, James Spader, with Olivia Barash as honorable mention.
Easily.
Yeah.
All right. So most memorable line.
I couldn't pick one. I have three.
Okay.
I think the one that means the most is one you already quoted earlier, and it's Morgan's dad, Stuart, saying, "Look, son, life isn't a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived. So live it."
Yeah, that's a good one.
Great.
For obvious reasons that I brought it up too.
Mm-hmm. And the other line is not a single line. It's each one has two people. Like one with Ronnie saying, "Wow, check out that lawn. It's a block long of perfect green." And Morgan responds, "It's a golf course, Ron."
that was a good comical moment for sure.
And another one was pretty comedic. It was shortly after this at the country club, where Frankie says, "Everyone's staring at me." And Morgan says, "Yes, they are. Well, what's happening here now is, you see, the girls are wondering where they've seen you before, and the guys are wondering why the hell they haven't." I think that's really good writing, almost to like a Jeff Goldblum standard.
I agree with all of those lines. They're not the line that I picked, but they are all very good lines for different reasons, right? Like,
yeah,
comic relief, good writing, kind of more emotional, like introspective. Like there's a variety there, for sure.
Mm-hmm. What was yours?
So mine was actually from Frankie, and I went in a completely different direction with this than you did.
Okay.
When Morgan asks her, "Are you going to college?" And she says, "I'll be lucky if I even graduate. I'll probably just get married. Don't need college for that." And the reason that I picked that line is because that might have been the singular moment where I felt the most bad for Frankie, where she had such a shitty life that was her, like, that was in her mind the best she could aim for.
Yeah, that's really sad.
Right? And that at that moment, I was like, there's so many signs in this like movie of her like being potentially such a strong, independent character, but like life had just been so bad for her that her goal is to just not even bother with college and just get married. Right? And it's like, wow, like you're supposed to be in high school apparently, and you're already giving up. Right? Like it was such a defeatist line, and I clearly went in a different direction than you did.
You don't say.
Okay, what was your most memorable scene or moment? Or did you want to elaborate on something I said about the line?
Yeah, I want to go back to our favorite lines and how I took more of a comedic route and you took a serious route. I mentioned before how this movie seems pretty light and then takes some dark turns. But the more we talk about it, the more I realize that the movie itself is very quirky. But when they have comedy in it, that comedy's punched in real hard. And it really is a good mirror for how dark the movie can be at the same time. So I do think there is a fair amount of a balance. It's just when it's not being funny or disturbing, it's just weird.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I had to say about that. But yeah, a memorable scene for you.
Well, moment or scene, if you recall.
Okay. Okay. For me, right off the bat, would be him shooting the cockroaches. It has no weight to the story whatsoever. But I remember walking into a room when two of my cousins were watching this movie in probably 1990. So I would have been about 7 or 8. And that's the first thing I saw was him laying in bed with the blankets tucked up around his face. And then him just popping up and shooting 2 cockroaches on the wall. And I think I got scared and ran away.
Because, you know, him being a great marksman comes up so much in the movie other than shooting one henchman.
Yeah. It's just so strange. It's a very bizarre scene just to establish the fact that he could shoot a handgun.
It's very weird.
It's very unnecessary. I'm glad that it's in the movie. Like I said, if it's not being super funny or dark, it's just strange.
I, again, went in a very different direction than you.
God damn.
And my favorite scene was the country club scene up until the singing.
Yeah.
Because
that's good. I mean, there is a fair argument to have for that.
If you were to watch that scene in and of itself, separate from the movie entirely, you would be like, this is a fun movie I want to watch. Like, it is a moment in time in the movie where they're just a bunch of kids being carefree, having some fun. You know, like the weight, the gravity, the darkness of everything that happens in the movie is not in this scene. And like, there's still a little bit of a conflict, you know, right? Frankie's still a little standoffish. It could be, you know, a story about, you know, Morgan trying to woo her. But it's just such a happy moment in the lives of these kids. And it is a very fun scene.
Yeah, it's a great scene. I mean, if you showed anybody who had no other idea what was going on in the movie, that one scene, I think they'd be like, I'm pretty sure I would enjoy this movie. I'll check it out.
They would also not be able to tell you at all accurately what this movie will ultimately be about.
Oh, no. God, no.
All right, so those are our awards. Why don't we get to final thoughts there, Ben?
I love this movie. I think that came across multiple times. I'm not even the biggest James Spader fan. I just think he's perfectly cast in this movie. Just like Kim, just like Robert. We're on a first name basis, in case you didn't know. I think everybody in here plays the role really well outside of Claudette Nevins, but you care about the lead, both male and female leads. You care about the secondary characters, the supporting characters. You care about Stewart. They make you dislike the characters that you're supposed to dislike very easily.
They make you dislike the characters you're supposed to like.
Sometimes, yes. I don't find that anything really drags. It is a long movie, but it doesn't feel like a long movie. The music is dated, but still pretty good, given the fact that it's 85. And the story itself as a whole, I think you could easily remake it today without having to change too much, and it would still be a success. What do you think?
This is a no-go for me, my man. I can definitely agree with you in a few regards. Like, it is a long movie, and it went by pretty quickly for me. That's not debatable. It does have a fun soundtrack that, even if you're not a fan of the music, is very fitting, and it works well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that it really did feel like ultimately the movie didn't know what it wanted to be.
Okay, yeah.
If you're going to give me a dark movie, give me a dark movie. If you're going to give me a 80s teen romp, give me an 80s teen romp. I completely respect what you were saying about the stark contrast between the quirky scenes and the dark scenes. But to me, that just made it feel like it didn't fit. Like, it felt like two movies Franken-movied together. And I don't think there's too much you can take away from this to really recommend.
Well, let me just jump in there for one quick second. When this movie came out, this was kind of like a template for 80s movies. Like, we were joking before about who the target audience was. It's definitely not for people in high school. It's for people a little bit older. From about 83 to 88, 80, maybe to 90, actually. There were a series of movies set in high schools that were directed towards people who had just graduated and were trying to make sense of what their experiences they had, like what they really meant. So it's people maturing post-high school, having to deal with stuff they went through that didn't really seem that important at the time, or might have seemed too important at the time. Hence the mix of comedy and suspense, not in suspense, like dark drama even. So it does fit with other movies that came out at the time. So maybe it's just not the right genre of movie for you, but there was an audience for it.
That may be so, but I can't put myself in the shoes of an 80s person watching it. And I mean,
I guess that was kind of the question though, wasn't it?
All yeah. Right. And like,
very, very good.
At the same time, like, I get like the emphasis of experiences that people had reflecting on, but like, our protagonist murdered somebody in the end, right? Like, did
he die though?
I mean, that's the implication. But like, these aren't things that you can say, oh, these are exaggerated. Maybe these weren't as bad when I look back on them. Like, no, this was some serious shit. That these characters, if they were real people, would ultimately be in therapy for very severe reasons. But
well, maybe we should be revisiting it this year with the 2021 sequel called Tougher Turf.
You're making that up, right?
Yeah, I wish I wasn't.
No. Anyway, again, if you know what you're getting into, by all means watch it because it is an easy watch, but I don't know who I would recommend it to mostly just mirroring the statement you made earlier. You don't know who it's for. Yeah. I really don't know who I would recommend it to. So, I guess this is the point where I tell people, if you have opinions on it, if you have your choices for awards, hit us up on Twitter, on Facebook. You know, we are at BS Bargain Bin, or you can email us bsbargainbin@outlook.com. Before we go, though, I need to ask you, Ben.
Yes.
What are we watching this week?
We are watching 1989's Cutting Class.
It was just another ordinary, dull, and boring semester at Worley High.
Attention, faculty and students. This is Mr. Dante, your principal.
The classrooms were in disorder.
As of today, you're suspended.
Relationships were impossible.
Not until your grades improve.
And the teachers were insane. But this year was going to be different.
What are you?
Someone was going to teach a lesson no one would forget, ever.
By the way, Frankenstein's staring at you.
Get shocked every day he was in the hospital. Every single day. How could they do that to him?
I like you, Paula. I really do.
Leave Paula and me alone.
Are you telling me the truth?
I'm trying.
What is this? Survival class?
Please, everyone, stay calm. Kids are missing. A teacher's missing. We stay calm and we'll all be dead. Help! Help! You understand English?
Was it a teenager in distress or a murderer in disguise?
Please don't kill me.
I'm the only teacher that you'll remember.
Donovan Leitch, Jill Sholin, Brad Pitt, Roddy McDowell, and Martin Mull.
On the floor.
In this school, you don't die trying. You just die.
Get out of the school!
Help! Help!
Cutting Class.
The school is closed.
Ooh, this will be interesting. All right. Until next time, guys, have a good one.
All the best, guys.